I went to a very small high school. I'm a native Idahoan, but I went to a small high school in Bozeman, Montana, in the Gallatin Valley, and was a member of FFA, and worked in the farm that the school had, moved pipe, and of course I have roots in eastern Idaho as well, where we moved a lot of pipe and grew a lot of potatoes on the farm. But it's amazing, having lived in Canyon County, how connected business is internationally from Idaho. We literally send our products that we make here in Idaho all over the world. And so it's not easy to call us the great state of Idaho or the great world of Idaho. We are so interconnected with the world today in so many ways, and from ag to technology. We are part of the world, and it's amazing the people in our state, how many connections they have internationally. And so Model United Nations got me thinking internationally at a very young age. And it's had a big impact on the way I see the world today. I think seeing how other countries relate to each other, seeing how they can help each other and be partners and not enemies, those were big things. Seeing how Idaho sharing, so many borders, state borders, but also, a northern border with our neighbor to the north, Canada. There's just all kinds of ways when you have to put yourself in the place of somebody else. And if you just stripped away all language and all borders, and you just looked at, I'm a business owner, I'm trying to deliver a product to my customer, I want my customer to be happy. How do I do that? What is it that they need? What is it that they want? That makes me think about things differently. Well, when you add into it the filters that you have to process that information through, being a different country, or in some cases, even on a different continent, Model United Nations puts you in a position where, as an American, you can put yourself, I remember the very first country that I represented in Model United Nations, it was Sudan. And we don't do a lot of business with Sudan, but I had never mentally been to Egypt before. And so here I was in a poor country, thinking about what would it be like to be on the continent of Africa. And in the second country that I got when I was a senior, I was actually in charge of the Soviet Union, which was totally an abstract experience from a guy who literally came from moving pipe from, in a wheat field. It was one of those experiences where I had to think differently. And so I really think that can have a big impact on how we see business, how we see neighbors, how we view the news. So yeah, being a good neighbor, being a good business person, just being a good member of the planet, all those things factor into and help the Model United Nations program helps us see things differently. I think as high school students, it's one of the times where you're the most open. There's a 10-year period in our lives where we really start to explore the space. I think, being in high school, to think of places other than yourself and to think about other people's needs other than your own, really puts you in a place that I think can cause growth spurts in how we see things. And so the fact that we hadn't had a program in Idaho here in a while, and where it really impacted me, even though it was several years ago, I really began to think this could be something that Idaho could really benefit from, whether it's in Ammon or Rigby or wherever part of Idaho we happen to be. And I live in Boise now, and I've lived in the Treasure Valley here for 25, 30 years. I'm excited about the opportunity of having students from all around our state, big and small cities, participate in an experience like this, because I think, who knows, that maybe there's an 8-year-old girl from Rigby, Idaho right now that will eventually be part of Model United Nations, and she'll broker a peace deal in the Middle East. Or maybe there's a boy in Rockland, Power County, Idaho, in eastern Idaho, that will be the guy that comes up with some new seed that South America needs that could help, create a whole economic base for Idaho, but also, help feed the people in South America. You just never know. where that genius might reside, and Model United Nations could be the catalyst to make that happen. Well, I think there's a ton of advantages to growing up in rural Idaho. And, you're talking about safe communities, you're talking about communities where everybody knows everybody. But I think where it started for me was I started stamp collecting when I was in junior high. And so to have stamps from all these different countries, it really, began to show me that the world was bigger than just the county or the little town that we happened to live in at the time. So again, opening up the world to young minds is super important. Um, our universities, the professors, whether it's the extension programs, the University of Idaho, or whether it's through, Boise State's reach throughout the state, there are people that grew up in rural Idaho that have gone off, have received excellent educations in different places, sometimes at Boise State, sometimes in the top universities in the world. And they've come back and they find themselves on faculty and staff here. And their experiences, their life experiences, the experiences that they actually lived, they didn't read about it in a book, but they actually lived it. I mean, those can give us, the more staff and faculty that we have that have had those kinds of experiences, the more economic advantages that we have in rural areas. Whether it's you're a farmer, a rancher, you're an inventor, maybe you come up with a way to store potatoes and get another month's worth of, where you're able to protect the nutrients in the crops that we have, that we produce here in Idaho. There's all kinds of ways that the experiences that people have left the state of Idaho have come back and have dedicated their lives to teaching students in our state, and sharing those experiences. I mean, remarkable things can happen. It can happen even just in a one hallway conversation. It doesn't even need to be in a regular class, or it could be an internship. There's so many ways that it could spark problem solving in a student who could make a big economic impact in our state, make their community safer, better places to live. There's just so many things that could, our state's benefited by the more cross-pollination we have with other states, with other countries. I really think that Boise State can be a catalyst again for helping that cross-pollination take place. Well, I think Dr. Kustra has, accomplished a number of things at Boise State that, just both he and his wife were very prominent leaders and continue to have an influence in our community here, even though they're living, I think, part of the time in Arizona. But, it's amazing what an administrator can do when they're truly vested and driven by, being a true public servant. And I think that caught my eye. It takes a lot to catch my attention, but his leadership, the way he led while he was president of the university, really impressed me. And we're very fortunate to have Dr. Trump now as well, because, being a rural Wyoming woman herself, and you see what she's been able to accomplish in her life. I mean, there's just really, Boise State is such a unique crossroads that we have, and to have Dr. Kustra and Dr. Trump both, we're very fortunate. These were two people dedicated to lifelong learning, and just super excited that it can bear their last name. Senator Church was spoken of in my mom's family. They're fifth generation Boiseans, a good Irish Catholic family. And but Frank Church was spoken of with such reverence that if you ever used his name in vain, you could end up having to stand in the corner, right? So it was one of those things where he really was a gifted orator. But again, it came from a deep commitment of public service to Idahoans. And with Frank Church and the influence that a good old Boise boy made in the world, the influences that he had even on international platforms, it's an honor for me to be a trustee now with the Frank Church Institute. There's so many things that he did. Hopefully we can inculcate not only ourselves that sense of service, the commitment to good academics, the good understanding of the law, both here and international law, how to be a good neighbor. All those things were things that church exemplified, and those are things we hope we can emulate in our own lives.